All right. Well, good morning. It's good to see everybody this morning. It's good to have everybody on. I'm Dr. Gilbert, Assistant Superintendent for Secondary Education for the Chandler Unified School District. And I would like to welcome you to today's Education and Workforce Development Roundtable. Today, we're thrilled to have here with us from the Kyrene Superintendent, Laura Toenjes, Chandler Interim Superintendent, Frank Narducci, and Tempe Union Superintendent, Dr. Kevin Mendivil. And hear from them about what they have learned over the past year and the strategies they are using to ensure students have successful return to the classroom. I'd like to thank our sponsors for helping to make programs like this possible: Intel, Arizona State University, Air Products and Chemicals, and Wells Fargo. Thank you for those groups. During the presentation, if members from the audience have any questions for our presenters, please type them in the chat for the Q&A session later on in the program. Well, let's get started by introducing today's speakers. We have Laura Toenjes is the superintendent of the Kyrene School District. She has over 25 years of educational experience and has served in multiple positions in all levels of education in the education system, from classroom teacher to state level administrator, all across the state of Arizona. Through these experiences, she has witnessed inequities in funding and resources and is a strong advocate for access and inclusion in public education. As a lifelong learner, she is committed to doing what it takes to ensure every child has equitable access to high quality education. Superintendent Toenjes grew up here in the Valley and has a master's degree in elementary education, as well as a dual master's degree in administration supervision and curriculum and instruction. Next, we have Mr. Narducci, is the interim superintendent of the Chandler Unified School District. Prior to his selection as interim superintendent of schools in July, Superintendent Narducci served as a principal, director, and assistant superintendent in the Chandler Unified School District 25 years. A dynamic and energetic leader, Frank is well known for his work in the field of education. He has taught educational leadership and theory courses at Northern Arizona University and is an advocate for early childhood education. In addition, he has been involved with the City of Chandler's Education Coalition, Downtown Chandler Community Partnerships, Chandler Education Foundation, Chandler Gilbert YMCA, and Read On Chandler. Superintendent Narducci is a graduate of the University of Arizona, where he received his bachelor's in elementary education and his master's in education leadership. And finally, Dr. Mendivil has served as the superintendent of Tempe Union High School District since 2018. He has been with Tempe Union as both the assistant superintendent of human resources and the associate superintendent since 2011. He began his career as a special education teacher, then later as a principal of a Mesa Elementary School as the director of human resources for Mesa Public Schools. Dr. Mendivil has a strong passion for ensuring that all students have equitable and enriching learning opportunities and that the learning environment for students are safe and engaging. He holds a Bachelor's of Arts in Special Education from Arizona State University, a Master's in Administration and Supervision from the University of Phoenix, and his educational doctorate in Education Administration and Supervision from ASU. Superintendents, we're going to turn it over to you to hear what you have to share about your district. And I'd like to start with Superintendent Toenjes.
Thank you, Dr. Gilbert, and thank you to the Chandler Chamber for inviting us to speak today. I am very honored to be able to represent the Kyrene School District and share with the community where Kyrene's headed in the next few years. So I appreciate the opportunity, and thank you to my fellow superintendents for joining me today. I really appreciate the collaboration that we've already had in just a very short amount of time. So just wanted to start out with that. For those of you that don't know me, I joined Kyrene back in the 2016-17 school year as an assistant superintendent, and was fortunate to move into the superintendent role in the middle of a school year, which is an unusual time to move into a superintendency in and of itself. but then we were in the middle of a pandemic where we were still in virtual learning when I took over, and much of our meetings and everything we were doing was still virtual. So the first 6 months was very different than anything else I had ever experienced, and made a commitment in those first 6 months to continue to get us through those challenges, but to also not let those challenges consume us for the business that we were really hired to do and the work that we all feel so passionately about, and to keep our focus on moving Kyrene forward and where we see Kyrene going in the future. So as I start my first school year as a superintendent, I am filled with a lot of optimism. I know the challenges are not done. I understand they're still out there. They haven't left us, but I am very hopeful about where we can go in the future. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about COVID a little later in some questions, but I'm also excited about some of the things we did learn because of the challenges that will help guide where we're going to go. So, in Kyrene, since I've been here, I was fortunate to be part of the 5-year strategic plan that we're currently under. We're going into our year 5. And so we talk a lot about our vision and mission since we set that plan in motion. And this year, I'm really taking us back to our core values, because I feel like after all the challenges we have been through, that is the most important piece right now for us, is to get back to remembering why we do what we do. And in Kyrene, we have a little saying, our core values spells the word kids. If you haven't heard, Kyrene is famous for their Kyrene kid, the little K kid. And so we start with kids, right? The kids are at the heart of everything we do. And I keep trying to share that message with our external community, our internal community. And so just bringing everybody back to, are we doing what's in the best interest of our kids? Our other core values, the I is integrity. And are we acting with integrity in everything we do and the decisions we're making? And then the other is really our dedication to collaboration and accountability. I think with that comes transparency, and we are trying very, very hard in Kyrene to be very transparent with our community, with our students, with our staff, and also hold each other accountable. We have really high standards in Kyrene. I mean, I grew up in Gilbert, and I knew the reputation in Kyrene back growing up, and it has stayed the same, and we want to maintain that or even elevate it. And so that's really important. And in order to do that, we have to hold ourselves accountable. And most importantly, again, I think this goes back to the kids, is the S stands for our strength in relationships, and how important those relationships are. And I think my fellow superintendents will probably agree with this. This last year has been a really big challenge, and rebuilding a lot of these relationships and regaining that trust is going to be critical in order for districts to be successful in the future. So really our focus in this year, if I think about the 21-22 school year, it is to wrap up that 5th year of our strategic plan, but it's really to start thinking about the possibilities of the future for Kyrene. Where do we want to go? Building our next strategic plan. And for me, I'm also participating in a national superintendent certification program. And this actually has become my action project, because I have such a passion for how do we involve the people that are so important in our system, our stakeholders, our parents, our community, our student voices, our staff. And it's not just always the same voices. How do we get to those voices that we're not always hearing to make sure they're part of building the future of Kyrene? And so I've made a commitment this year to really, really rethink my councils. I have 4 superintendent councils, and I also have a business alliance group, but how do I involve them in building the future of Kyrene? And so I'm just getting ready to kick off my parent superintendent council, and they were all paused during the pandemic. So we're really sort of starting fresh in a way. And so how do I re-engage all those stakeholder groups? So my parent council is really focused on, that connection between the PTOs and the district and what's happening at sites. And word of mouth is our biggest marketing, if you will, and communication strategy. And so how do I help our parents on these councils have the information they need to be sharing at their sites and to be sharing with their community, so that the word is out, and giving them an opportunity to give me feedback and ask those questions. I have a teacher superintendent council that I also lean into. And it's also, we have our teachers that participate on every single committee, but I am really going to try to get at, how do I get to some of the teacher voices that aren't always heard? because I want to know what's going on or why, and not always having everybody that's in agreement with what you do, but people that also want to challenge, because I really do believe in diversity of thought. We create much better outcomes. So I believe our strategic plan will be that much stronger if we can get people that can have a really robust dialogue about where we want to go. The other is our student council. And of course, that's the one that I'm looking most forward to, because I can't wait to have our students back together. And how do we get that student voice, and how do we engage them, not just in giving them information, but letting them give us information. And so I'm super excited for our student council. And then the fourth council is our community council. And I'm rethinking that just a little bit, in that our community council was really mostly external stakeholders. And what I'd like to do is bring a council together that is representative of all of our stakeholders in the community council, so that what I have found is sometimes when you bring just the teachers together, although that's very powerful, they don't get to hear the parent voice in that group. The parents aren't hearing the teachers aren't hearing the students. And so my vision of this community council is to bring all those groups representative together in a broader group, that they can hear each other's ideas and thoughts. And maybe that makes us sometimes start thinking differently when I hear that perspective, that I think this sounds great, and the students are telling us that's not so great for us. Please don't do that. And so it helps us make better decisions. The other piece of this that my focus has been on is rethinking how I use what many call a cabinet in school leadership, senior leadership team. And I've really set some things in motion with them about, we are the key decision makers along with the school board for this district. And we aren't coming together to represent our individual departments. We're coming together to represent the system as a whole and making decisions that impact our entire organization. And so I've really set in motion the purpose for them and the 3 focus areas, which align very much to our strategic plan. And this year, we are going to be very focused on enrollment. We have got to talk about what is our long-term enrollment strategy in Kyrene. Our demographer has given us information that we are, we are not a growing district. We are pretty much maxed out on land. Our neighborhoods don't turn over like some neighborhoods. And what is the vision of enrollment in Kyrene? What types of schools do we want? What is our strategy? I say to my team all the time, we're not going to market ourselves out of an enrollment situation. This is bigger than just marketing. It really is about, what does Kyrene offer? What does Kyrene offer to the community? Why do people choose to come? Why do people choose to stay? And so we're going to be pulling, and our councils are going to be critical in those conversations. The other, and you said this, Dr. Gilbert, in my opening, it actually almost makes me tear up every time I talk about it. I have visited just about every district in this state, and I have seen the inequities. And when I came to Kyrene, it's interesting because there's a perception that those don't exist in a district like Kyrene. And I am here to tell you they absolutely do exist. We have kids that come to us not ready, and they leave us not ready. And that, to me, is why I'm in this business. And so I feel very, very passionate that it is our responsibility as the key leaders, as educators in this community, to come together and figure out what is keeping our children, all of our children, every single child, from being successful or having opportunities for success. And I go back to the word access. We use the word equity a lot, and I know there's a lot of national attention around this word right now. And I keep telling people, if you take the word access and replace the word equity with that, just think of it that way. Have we done everything we can to reduce every barrier in this district so that every student at least has an opportunity to be successful? And I would argue that right now we haven't. And I think we've done some auditing of our own systems to uncover places where we haven't. And we are working really hard to do that. The third thing that we're going to be focused on is trust. I kind of alluded to this, and trust and engagement are going to be critical to the success of any school district right now. There is a lot of things being thrown at public education right now that are out of our control. But what we can control is building those relationships with everybody, getting us all going towards what that same outcome is we all want. And I believe if you ask every single person that's part of our system that has stayed in public education, we all want the same thing. We just have different ideas of how to get there. So it's valuing those ideas. It's my team taking time to listen, even when we don't agree with them, and working really hard to build the trust. And part of the reason that trust is so important, and I'm, without getting into too much, but I know we're going to have a session on override, but we are going out for an M&O override this year. And it is critical for Kyrene in that it helps fund teacher salaries. It helps support our special areas, arts, music, PE, and it helps support those additional support services like academic intervention, things that do give us more access. So for Kyrene, that's really our focus going into this next year, and then building what the future looks like. So thank you. And
well, thank you
for any questions.
Yes, thank you very much for sharing. We really appreciate your passion and your optimism for working to make sure that your students in your community are successful. Your open-minded approach, it really is striking. So it really shows that as you're looking to branch out and have your community and your stakeholders be involved is so important. So thank you for sharing that with us. Next, you. Mr. Narducci, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Dr. Gilbert. Great to see you, Laura and Kevin, and it's great to be among you today and working towards everything that we're working towards. There just seems to be a lot on everybody's plates, and so we do appreciate the time. I'm going to just update us a little bit on myself to introduce to those that are joining the chamber meeting today. I originally was born in the Bronx, New York. My parents owned a business, so we were very business oriented and very business related growing up. Moved to Tucson, Arizona at age 10 and graduated from the University of Arizona. And those that are University of Arizona haters, my daughter graduated from ASU just this last May, and she's gainfully employed. So they did a great job there too. And my wife, Vicki, of 25 years, she went to NAU. So we've got those three in state at least covered in our family. My daughter did go through Chandler schools from preschool all the way through 12th grade, graduated from Perry High School, and I think had a lot of opportunity. I got to see firsthand of what our students receive, and we do believe it's a first-class education. I've been in public education for 39 years. Of those, 25 have been right here in Chandler Unified School District. 18 years as a principal. I've been a principal at both the elementary and junior high levels. 6 years as director of program development and working on some of our choice programs, and community education director, which runs all of our community school programs, everything after school facility use, etc. And 10 years, these past 10 years, assistant superintendent, and I get to join this illustrious team with 1 month under my belt of interim superintendent. So replacing Dr. Camille Castile. I want to tell you a little bit about Chandler Unified School District because I think it's important to know who we are and where we came from, and the traditions we have to move forward, because it does, what we have done in the past does tell a lot about what we will do in the future, and that's our commitment to our public. We have 45,000 students. We're the second largest school district in the state of Arizona. We're Chandler's second largest employer. So with over 5,000 employees, we do have a big workforce, a workforce that is really hard to secure, especially at our support staff positions. And that's one of the challenges we face right now is there's just not enough in the minimum wage within public schools to retain individuals at that level when we're competing outside with jobs that are paying entry people without any education $17 to $20 an hour. Our district spans 80 miles. You would probably want to think about that unless you're a bus driver, and then you'll think about that, but 80 miles is quite a bit. 1,000 acres of district land, and we have 5.5 million square feet of school space. So that's a big air and heating bill and electrical bill, which is something that we work with as a challenge and a blessing every day that we don't think about with our schools running, how much it takes to really keep them going without even students in them. We also have an average student teacher classroom ratio of 24:1. It's a favorable one in the East Valley. And that is something that we have focused on, was to try to keep those classroom sizes to where appropriate feedback can be given to students. And that's our average across all of our 45 schools. And we have over 100 years of tradition and excellence. So I'd like to share a little bit about what does that mean for our incredible students. And we do. We have incredible students, and we have a very supportive educational supportive community. Always have, and everybody that comes into Chandler and who moves into Chandler or open enrolls into Chandler has those same values. Just last year in the senior class, we had $159 million generated in scholarships just last year from our senior class. 19,000 hours of AP credits by our seniors. And that's a great savings for our parents as they're thinking of how they're going to afford college, or even our young ones who are thinking of going in with student loans and putting that burden on their back, because that usually is the next 20 years of their lives. So we pride ourselves on our high schools being able to give that advantage so students can go in and progress in their post-secondary work with having credits already to their name. We have 94 A+ schools of excellence and National Blue Ribbon schools. That's 84% of our schools in our district that have been recognized at that level. And that's a really nice audit of the community, as well as students, as well as teachers and parents, how they and teachers and principals as to how they feel about their schools and the quality of the total program that's offered at their sites. We have 224 athletic state champions just in the last 5 years. So athletics and extracurriculars are very important for our community. 208 national merit finalists in the last 5 years, 10 Flynn scholars, 10 Flynn scholars. That's 10% of all Flynn scholars in the state. So we're really proud of that. And the offerings that we're able to provide based on just the economy of scale are 81 advanced placement in international baccalaureate programs. A lot of our parents choose those programs to move their students forward. And then 43 language offerings, including dual language immersion programs in Spanish and Mandarin, and then 27 athletic offerings that are available to our students. So I know we've talked about a little bit of our focus and our belief, and so we hold these things for all students. We want all Chandler students to be greeted every day, and that they perceive COSD adults as interested and engaged in their success and well-being. We need to connect at every level with students. Every student needs to be connected with a caring adult, and it may not be their teacher in their classroom, but it may be somebody on that campus, and we need to find a way to be able to do that. And it's imperative, especially in these last few years too, that students have a connection to other adults outside of their household. A personalized and student-centered learning environment for all students, where we're looking and valuing as to what they bring in knowledge, but build off of that. And gone are the days where you just have a blank slate of students sitting in front of you. We have to engage and learn what it is that the student brings to the knowledge, and then actually start from there. We also believe that a robust and rigorous learning experience provide them for the world and a workforce that is increasingly driven by technology. We, as Laura said, we definitely exposed a lot of things during last year, and one of those things is the inequity of access and how technology plays. And does technology play a separate role? Like, you go to a technology class and you learn what you do in technology, and then you go back to class and you learn paper and pencil, and you don't connect with real world opportunity. And so that's really helped us move forward as we look at future ready schools, to be able to know that technology, it plays a large part in where our students are going and where they're heading, especially in the future ready workforce. We also believe that our students need caring and highly qualified teachers implementing learning strategies that are research based, and that are high yield strategies for our students that they can be involved in. And so we're really working with our professional development this year in assisting, bringing some coaches into the classrooms to be able to work with teachers. Because when you're doing professional development on such a large scale with over 2,000 individuals, to have a consistent practice at the end, it's proven by research that 90% of your teachers will change and engage in their practices stronger on a daily basis, more of the time, not some of the time, if they have a coach by their side, and if they're able to work through that rather than just going and sitting and receiving passive information and then going back and hoping you remember 10% of it. And that's about how much gets transferred if you don't do that. We also feel that learning takes into account student passions and interests for deeper engagement and learning. We want to tap into our students' passions and interests. That's what connects them, and every student's different. And so we have to engage them through knowing who they are and what their passions are. And definitely, we believe that a clear pathway needs to exist for successful post-secondary experiences to career and a full potential to continue to be lifelong learners. So for some of our students, that's school to post-secondary, college, university. Some of that's school to career, and some of those may be school to career to secondary to post-secondary, which means they may be working for an organization where they actually get employed with. Many of you know that we have had a 10-year strategic plan called Journey 2025. And that's been a plan that we've had in place for the last 15 years. We're in the process of creating a future-ready Journey 2030 plan with specific focus on enhancing a few areas. And I just wanted to kind of cover those because it's really important to know that, as Laura said in what her statements were, that we involve all of our stakeholders. We have councils that will be involved in vetting all of our goals, and then really studying them and seeing the ins and outs and helping us direct this future ready plan with student advisories, parent advisory, when we have a teacher advisory as well as other advisories. And we'll also go out and create some virtual opportunities for individuals to weigh in as well, because we need all community support in moving the educational aspects for our students forward. But as we look at our Journey 2030 plan, a few areas, Dr. Gilbert, that we're looking at, and I know you know them, but curriculum and instruction and assessment is an area that we'll be looking at very closely. It's the biggest thing that will change students' futures and the teacher that's teaching that. And so we're looking at timely and differentiated supports for our students, especially with this unfinished learning that we've uncovered last year. And I wouldn't say it's loss of learning. I like to call it unfinished learning because we have that across all spectrums. Our AP students, our IB students, our students who had gaps coming in before they were in kindergarten, who started school with gaps. So we really need to look at where their unfinished pathway is, and start to fill that with specific pieces of instruction that help them move forward. We also are going to be working this year as a focus with a robust infrastructure to see how our infrastructure really provides 21st century opportunities for our students. So that means we have to leverage technology, and because we just don't do it enough, and we need to be better at it. And so we are eliciting supports, and actually supports of Intel and Dell, and doing a pilot program with Chandler High School to look at sustainability and how technology can be provided outside of school services and how it can be funded. And this pilot's going to help us see that we provide IT for parents and students 24 hours per day when they need it, kind of looking at time and space being not an obstacle. A lot of times we just provide supports during the school day, but we realize a lot of our kids go to work, a lot of our kids go in sports, and they need help at 9 o'clock, and there's nobody to help them. So we really have to look at that robust infrastructure to kind of get them moving forward and to be able to be responsive in real time. Also, the use of space and time, as I said, supporting multiple approaches to learning, and a notion of anytime, anywhere learning. I would love it if we could get to there, that our students can be involved with anytime, anywhere learning. And that's where we're moving, because we've gone to an anytime, anywhere workplace. We know that many of our students get into workforces. My daughter's in one of them, where she can do her work anytime, anywhere. Also, data and privacy. That's a big key concern for our parents and us, is they want to make sure that that we're secure, and that we're cyber secure, and that their students' information is very safe. And so we need to utilize a strategic use of data to augment our student learning, and that's teachers understanding the data that our students that our students have, our academic student data, but then also, what do I do next? So now that I know, what do I do, to put it in simple terms? And that's where we struggle the most in public education, and I would say even in private education, is we just don't know what to do with that immediately, other than a tutoring program. We have to look at point in time discovery, I call it, intervention for our students. And then the last two areas that I'd like to cover on our focus will be definitely personalized professional learning. Teachers have quality professional skills, and we want them to apply their personalized student learning approach in the classroom. And to do that, they're going to need help and support. And so we're looking at providing that support at the site level. Budget and resources, of course, are always there. We have been blessed with a bit of money for ESSER 3, which we are going out with our stakeholder input meeting out at the end of this month to get our parent input and have them weigh in on our strategies. And then also they may be giving us other strategies that their specific student needs. And remember, the ESSER 3 is a 3-year funding that came to state. For Chandler, that means about $30 million. And what we need to do by 2024 is to work on unfinished learning and to secure aspects of the district that help our students focus on learning and our teachers be ready for that 21st century type style of teaching. And so we're looking at strategies with our parents, looking at the input, and then we'll be doing that with our staff as well. As was said prior, our teachers and are on committees, and what we'll do is we'll make sure that whichever way we go, we're always going to be looking at our stakeholder feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Narducci. First off, thank you for taking on the challenge of becoming the new superintendent in Chandler. And we appreciate your focus on the connection with students and being engaged in the center, students at the center of learning, your ability to look ahead. And I really like your saying of it's most of the time, not some of the time. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. Dr. Mendivil, let's hear from you.
All right. Well, I first of all, thank you for having me here along with these two wonderful leaders, educational leaders in their communities and their districts. I think you will hear, as soon as I'm done, you'll hear a common theme, and that is we have to get back with getting to know our kids and engaging and making those meaningful connections in the classrooms. Mr. Frank mentioned that, we can call it whatever we want in terms of learning loss, gaps in learning, but the kids aren't ready. And so there's a level of unreadiness with our students right now, and that's for valid reasons. And so there's a number of things that we're going to focus on this year. For our convocations, because I do one every year. I didn't do one last year for obvious reasons, but I combined our schools. And for those of you who are new to Tempe Union High School District, we're fortunate we have 6 schools, 6 high schools. We just moved programming from our alternative school, Compadre High School, to one of our sister schools just down the street. It's more accommodating. I think our students will be better served in that venue. And we will be looking at options for that building on 500 West Guadalupe. And we have some really wonderful plans that I will share at a later time. But we're excited about some of the opportunities there. Well, let me return back to our convocations, because when you have an absence of humankind, whether that's our students or our colleagues and our teachers, things just aren't right. And they haven't been right all year long because we've not had that human interaction. And I wanted to visit with our staff, with our high schools. And as I mentioned, we have just 6 high schools. We have 13,000 students. So we're not quite as large as Chandler, but we are big. And the thing that I appreciate with our system is that I have 2 wonderful feeder districts with Kyrene and then Tempe Elementary School District. What that wonderfulness, though, presents some challenges because we have a large open enrolled student body. Like Laura mentioned, we are not growing. We're landlocked. We have had, from our demographers report, have indicated that we will have just natural loss of students and families because they're not moving out of Ahwatukee and they're not moving out of Tempe, and the cost of living in Tempe is a bit higher than some of our other areas. So that's just that. So we rely on what we do as an educational institution in Tempe Union, and that is, I believe, we teach our students very well. It is nice and fortunate. I've worked in the East Valley all my life. This is my 35th year in education. And when I was in Mesa, the largest school district, for 20 years, it was nice having that unified system of operation. I don't get to enjoy that as much, but I am now because we have made a concerted effort, Laura and Dr. Driscoll and Tempe EL, to work more cooperatively. And I wouldn't say cooperatively, uniformly, where we can, because we've always been trying to support one another, but it's really pivotal now. I think we have the right chemistry to make that happen a little bit more so than not, to benefit the students that come to all of us. Back to the convocation, because we hit on a lot of things, and what I wanted to share with our teachers, because they are the key factors in making change and a difference in the lives of our students. We can set up all the structures, all the parameters, all of that as best as we can. I mean, but the bottom line, it rests with the teachers. So I wanted to have some special time with them, but what I shared with them is that our schools are so much more to our families and to our students. They're the community hub. I mean, especially a high school building, you know, that building, there's a lot that surrounds the activities that go on in that school. And it's an open door. These are community schools. And so when the students were not there, or halftime there, or hybrid, and all the other venues that we experienced, it was very, very frustrating. But what we learned is that the school culture is so critical because it is the community hub. And to Laura's point too, in the absence of our students and during this pandemic, which we are still experiencing, by the way, the inequities and the barriers surfaced even more so. While we tried to continue offering, you know, hot meal during the morning and the afternoon for our students, I'm sure everyone else was doing the same because we care and it is the right thing to do. But I'll tell you, it did surface the inequities. And to your point also, Laura, our students who you wouldn't think would have issues with connectivity or device use did not have that. And so some of our families in our zip codes that one would assume would have that accessibility did not. So we can't fool ourselves with that kind of thing. But just working together and returning back to the core of who Tempe Union is. And we are a family of schools with a rich, rich history. Without taking too much time, our focus this year, and has always been, but returning with a vengeance, is focusing on teaching. What is it that we are doing? Because we've spent a number, 2 or 3 years now since I've been in this chair, on really honing in to Frank's point about what happens in the classrooms. And we have really developed and strengthened our professional learning communities, those departments that work very critically with the data. We talked about data. We have a strong data dashboard now with a wealth of data, a variety of data at the disposal for all of our users at the district level down to the classrooms. But what are we doing with that in real time? You have data from formative assessments. What are you going to do to change your instruction to make that difference for the 6 kids that didn't get it or didn't get it as well? I mean, we're at that stage. So I'm very grateful and thankful with our teaching and learning department, where we have put in, that's a passion of mine, being a former special education teacher at the elementary. I also find it interesting that these 2 leaders are also elementary background. Yay, elementary. I was an elementary principal for 5 years too. So I think we make some of the best leaders, to be honest with you. But really honing in on what happens with that dynamic with the teacher and the student, and how are we improving that learning experience. That's critical. And as simple as that sounds, it's one of the most complicated and challenging efforts that our teachers face every single day. Now, you couple that with having a highly open enrolled school district as we are, because we reach into the baseline corridor with all the new families that are moving in, that some may think because it's South Phoenix or the baseline corridor, there's money there. These people are paying $600,000 and $700,000 and $800,000 for homes. We have all of Ahwatukee, we have parts of Chandler, we have all of Tempe. We have a broad range of student, and that student comes with a varied readiness level. And so we have to respond appropriately with that. That's why I say, and I'm thankful that our teachers teach them well. We also looked at the data from the AZ Merit, and comparatively, and looking at Chandler and, well, not looking at Chandler, but you guys were in school most of your year, I think, to some degree. We unfortunately were not. And so in spite of the fact that our students were not in school in person and they were online or at various degrees of a blended or hybrid experience, our kids did well comparatively. They learned. So when they showed up to school to test, to with a controlled environment, having this online experience in the back, the kids learned. This tells me a couple of things, and the teachers know this. We have been hounding them around the essential standards. Teach what is essential, and it's not teaching to the test. Okay, it's about focusing on what we are going to be held accountable to. And if we're in alignment, great. Well, we are in alignment with all that. So I think our teachers are doing it extraordinarily well. I heard a little 1 minute button thing going on, but student engagement, connection with our students. I've been in classrooms the past 3 days, quality instruction, the social emotional healthiness of our students and our teachers is critical. We are addressing that. I want to reemphasize the students who did engage with their teachers learned, and we have data to support that. I also want to reinforce how much we rely on our stakeholders, all our stakeholders. We have 2 educator think tanks that we execute when we have projects, and they're a dynamic group of like 15 each representing all our schools. I'm so excited to re-engage our superintendent student advisory council. To your point, Laura, that's my highlight of the week when I get to meet with them. We have not ever had a family advisory, parent advisory council. I am starting that this year, so I'm anxious to begin that so we can get more input. And to everyone's point, the transparency of what we do and the decisions that we make need to be known. And oftentimes what we find out is that our community just wants to know what we're doing and they don't know. And so once they understand the work that we do and our focus is genuine and sincere all around our students, that trust, that thankfulness, that appreciation, and that support grows and grows. And so we have a lot going on that's good, and I'm thankful to be a part of Tempe Union High School District and thankful that I'm a part of this community.
Well, thank you very much for sharing. I would agree with you. It is so important for meaningful encounters for our students and understanding that the school is the hub of the community. And so when that is not there, it does make a difference with our students and our families. And also you sharing that teachers are key and how they're teaching and focus on teaching this year, similar to what Mr. Narducci was saying. So we thank you for all that you are doing for your students and for your community. Before we get into moving into the community questions that have come in, I have a couple questions that were prepared by the Education and Workforce Development Committee that I'd like to ask each of you to respond to, if you would. And so the question I have for you is, the COVID-19 pandemic presents unique challenges for our schools. What can you share about the resilience you have seen in your students and staff? Start with Superintendent Toenjes.
Thank you, Dr. Gilbert. You know, it's interesting. So in Kyrene, we have a tradition, and it's typically more of an internal, but sometimes the word gets out external too. And we have this tradition of it's called one word. For those of you that never have heard that tradition, instead of creating a New Year's resolution, you create a one word, and that kind of becomes your focus to learn and grow in that word. And each year, our Kyrene leaders go through it for their school. We go through it, and as we were kind of winding down last year, this word forward kept popping up. And I think this ties to resiliency, and that we are in a place, we need to move forward, right? We had what we had over the last 2 years. We probably still have some challenges, but what are the things that we're going to do to focus on moving forward? And we actually started to think about what are some things that our teachers and our staff did that all along through this pandemic. How were they moving forward? Whether it's through innovation, through some of their forward thinking of ideas they came up with during the pandemic. I mean, some of the things that our teachers came up with, I think speaks to their resiliency. Here they were told, go home. You've not been trained to be an online teacher. You've not been given, the resources you probably need because we couldn't even get them quick enough. And they came up with some amazing things. If you could see some of the, traditional curriculum nights, traditional museum nights that they turned into these virtual, our art show is probably, I mean, the most amazing thing I've ever seen. You jump into this art show, and next thing you know, you can go to 100 different rooms and see every student's art piece. And it just speaks to the fact that even though they had these challenges, they were able to overcome that. The other thing that I think speaks to our resiliency was the all hands on deck. I mean, we had bus drivers sitting, helping in classrooms cover kids who needed a safe place to go while they were online learning. You had just everybody jumping in wherever they needed to jump in. We had students that created, we have some that created these wristbands to support families that were struggling with COVID related issues, just the amazing things that you saw come out. And I think something that spoke to me about resiliency, I mean, I think Frank, you mentioned, right? It is difficult to get employees, and yes, support staff is it's difficult too, but there is a teacher shortage, and that is a real thing for all districts. Some of us not quite as much, but that are in a better location, but it is still a real reality. And despite going into a closure that March of the previous year, we had our highest retention rate of teachers that we've had in 6 years going into last school year. To me, that speaks to the resiliency of our teachers and what they want to commit to our students. So I think that's critical. And then one final thing, I love the term Frank uses, unfinished learning. I've kind of shared that with my team to say, I think that really speaks well to it. We did receive some funding. We developed very quickly a summer program that could address some of this. And we opened the doors and changed our program to invite a lot more families and children into this learning, which meant we needed more staff. And Kyrene did something that not all districts did, but we actually voted at the beginning of the year to extend our calendar year until June 8th this year. So it was a long school year for our teachers with a very short summer because we didn't extend the start date of this year. And we still had 270 staff members that agreed to teach in this program for students. And we had 1,120 students. We typically have a few hundred in the summer. To me, that speaks to the resiliency and our commitment to do whatever it takes to try to help kids catch up with what they maybe have missed over the last year. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Narducci.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Gilbert. I think we can all state that last year took us out of our comfort zone. And I think by being out of our comfort zones, all of us, parents, staff, students, I think you get your most growth because you're forced to look at things differently. We were forced to look at teaching and learning differently and to shift to in-person instruction. That shift took a lot to do, training over 2,000 teachers who are very confident and competent teachers within the classroom. All of a sudden had to bring that whole show at home, maybe building a little area of their household that became a classroom. But we found that students of all ages built a great deal of grit to navigate the challenges of school closures. They did much more than we ever give them accountability for because we were not very good at it. And I would say most school districts were not very good at it. And they made the difference. They really did. And you could see it. When we went to virtual learning, the thing that we saw was that the instructional program at the start was horrible. I mean, it was. So we just have to call it what it was. It just didn't meet the needs. We had that one summer to get it taken care of, because we knew that this was continuing and that we were going to be in virtual again probably the next year. So I think that helped us to really focus on what was missing and what was needed. The only thing that we could not surround our kids with is the social and peer relationship support, which is really a strong part of our in-person instruction. And that really it's a part that our students thrive on. And we heard that from our students, that's what they miss the most. But they exhibit a great amount of resiliency, as Laura says. The key aspect was they kept trying to work through their frustrations and failures. They kept connecting and engaging. And we even had students who became leaders. And as we tuned into the sessions, because that's what we did last year, is to see how it was going and what the frustrations were. We had all of our team doing that. And I know, Dr. Gilbert, you were doing that with secondary, and I was looking at elementaries as we went to schools and just tapped into what was going on online. Kids were taking charge. They were helping kids get connected and helping kids' parents get connected through just taking leadership and saying, hey, try this, try that. We also had, we had a lot of growth through a crisis. And as we said, it's serious. It's not over. We are implementing very strong mitigation strategies right now and have a plan to even increase those as our case rates do climb. We have high community spread. Schools are not going to be void of that coming from the community, because there's nothing happening in the community right now that's mitigating anything. Everybody outside of the school day is living life normal. So we're trying to increase those mitigation strategies and look at our numbers daily. And that helped us. That helped us build dashboards, and it helped us to look at individual students and even their well-being as well when we have to isolate. But also we had a great deal of growth in our teachers. And I think our teachers, just like our students, they had a big deal of discomfort that they had to work through. And so working to train over 2,500 teachers to be virtual teachers within a week was probably unheard of. And were they the best experts in the world? No, but they did a great job, and they stuck with it, and they stuck through their frustrations. We also were able to create a synchronous environment at the elementary level for our students, which is Elementary Connect, which had about 6,000 students in an online program all last year. And so did our high school Chandler online program, which had together we had about 12,000 students that were taking instruction online for the whole year, not just for part of the year. And so we were able to look out and see, what do we need to do for elementary kids to keep them connected to learning, to their teachers, keep them engaged, and also an accountability for what they were learning too. So that helped us create Elementary Connect, which is still a popular choice right now, based on having 370 kids enrolled in that school this year. And we can accommodate other students. So if parents need that option, as they see cases at their schools, they can have that option and that choice. And the other part, I'll wrap this up, is it helped us see that 24/7 kids needed help desk, and they needed access to somebody to help them. I think we took 12 employees, put them in a room. We had them in there. It looked like almost a call center or command center, but they helped parents and kids through their frustrations, which they were very frustrated with, and did it with class. And they came back the next day and they just went at it again for another 12 hours. And so we found that anytime learning, anywhere learning was what was needed, because parents were working with their kids when they came home from work as well. And then the last part is just supporting of the ESSER III funding. And we learned that there is this unfinished learning, and we learned that tutoring needs to take place 24/7 when kids can get access to it. And we have to value our formative assessments, like Kevin said, Dr. Mendivil said. They have a dashboard, a great dashboard, and we do too. And it's called Tableau, and our student success indicators are in there. We are really focused on that, so that we're in that data all the time. Our teachers are in the data, our principals are as well, our leaders are. But then, as he had said prior to, what we learned from COVID is, okay, we need to change at the point of discovery. We cannot wait to provide interventions for students when there's unfinished learning. And the other thing we need to do is provide accessibility. And I know Laura and Dr. Toenjes said the same thing. Accessibility at all times for our students, because they can't wait. They can't wait at 9 o'clock when they need to know how to do something, to come to a school, to be told, come to tutoring if you don't know it. But then at tutoring, you don't know what you don't know. So you've got to be able to work with students in real time.
Thank you. And Dr. Mendivil.
Well, you know, the word that comes to mind, because I was thinking what you were saying, Laura, about one word, perseverance. And that was one thing that I shared with staff continuously across the, you know, where's our focus? Why are we so privileged to be in our roles in this education environment? Because a lot of people lost their jobs. There was a lot of disarray and breakup of what was happening out in our communities with people. We had our jobs, we kept our drivers employed, but we did all of that. We kept our teachers busy and all, but it was the perseverance all around our students. Why are we here? If we don't have kids, guess what? We're out of business. It's simple as that. So we better persevere, and we better respond, and we better pivot to the advantage of our students. How are we going to improve programming and their experience in spite of this pandemic? Okay. So the reality is, you can whine, you can, it is what it is. So how are we going to take care of our kids? Simply put, we did a lot of that pivoting, and I will tell you, our teachers were extraordinarily exemplary in their ability to create and with improvisation in their classrooms, with how they used cameras. We invested in cameras in all our classrooms, so we had again a larger presence with more of a hybrid blended learning environment. And so we had to do that because I wanted to make sure that we had opportunities for kids to engage with their teachers. Some did well with it, some did not, but we'd pushed out in part of our plan for technology use and understanding for our teachers, and how we can improve the learning experience with technology with our teachers. So our teachers had some solid readiness around that. But I can't tell you how much our teachers really persevered in pivoting and making it work at every moment's notice. They did what they needed to do. We realized, to Frank's point around the 24/7 kind of attention that we needed to have, we expanded 2 of our schools' tutoring programs, Desert Vista and I think at Mountain Point. And it is now a district program. We began that midstream where we use our students. Our students are the best tutors for kids. And so all 6 of our schools now have a strong tutor program. That is 24/7. They just sign up, kid. I mean, it's really a machine right now. I just go back to the perseverance that our teachers exhibited, and proudly so, with the work that they did continuously on responding and adapting at a moment's notice. I can't emphasize that enough, because again, the individual that's going to make the most difference is going to be that teacher. And if they aren't trying their best and showing that perseverance and showing that creativity and improvisation, guess what? The kids' experience is not going to be vital, and they're not going to learn, regardless of a pandemic or not. And so we really focused on that. The resiliency, I honed in on that with our staff, and even at the district office, because all of us, you guys know, it was crazy at times, and we had to respond appropriately. I just can't tell you how proud I am of our students too, because our kids, you think they're not listening with that camera off, but they are. And so when they do engage, even we may not think so, they're learning. And to your point, Frank, the kids they're far more resilient than we give them credit. So simply put, I think, again, back to our teachers, the work that they do, their ability to pivot and respond and adapt quickly. I just can't thank them enough.
Thank you for sharing. We know that these are difficult times, but it is also important to talk about the positive things that are still happening with your students and your staff. For the next question, one of the things that I know the Chandler Chamber does is really connect with the business community in Chandler to ensure that we have a thriving business community as we look to the future to make sure that we can support our families and the businesses within our community. For each of you, how can the business community best support your school district? Superintendent Toenjes.
Thank you, Dr. Gilbert. Great question. Again, I think I shared in my opening how important I believe partnerships are. External stakeholders are critical to the success of public schools because they really are schools of the community. And I think you said that also, Superintendent Mendivil. But for us, and it's not just about always having to give something to the district. And that's what I want the businesses to hear. We also need your input. Yes, we greatly, and I would never turn away any additional support, of course, but it's not just about always having to give monetary or give something, but it's what are other ways that we can partner and collaborate in a community together. I believe our businesses, as I said, should be a part of building our strategic plan. Our schools serve the community just like our businesses do, and we are all partners in that. And so that to me is very, very critical. So such as, we do have a Kyrene Business Alliance. I invite businesses, please bring your voice to that table. It is important for us. We also, connecting with our parent organizations, reaching out, especially right now in a time when our parent organizations have had their hands tied in doing some of the things they've done to help support schools under pandemic conditions, if you will. And so if you have innovative ideas or things that you can bring to them to share that help them grow and support their schools, that is also great. The other thing, for those of you that are not aware, and I know we're not going to go into all this right now, but we developed a school of the future, if you think about that, called our Spark School. And one of our visions for that school, and this is another way I see this coming down the road, is we tap into our business community as expert connectors. So again, it's not just about what can you give monetarily and just your voice, but you also can serve children, and those in your businesses can help serve our children, because I am a firm believer that education, and I do believe our teacher is the most critical, but education doesn't just happen in the walls of walking into a classroom every day. And so if we as a community value education of our children and making sure that they all have access to what they need to be successful, then we should all have a hand in educating them. And so I really believe there's some opportunity in tapping in to experts that are out in the field in our businesses that can support student learning. And so we have built a model in our Spark program that does tap into our businesses and bringing those expert connectors into the classroom to help educate our children. So that is another way I see a really strong partnership. So again, I want to thank our business community. If you are interested in serving on our Business Alliance, I do want to just put a plug in. If you would just contact our communications team at kco@kyrene.org, we can make sure you get on the list. Our first meeting will be coming up at the end of the month.
Thank you. And Mr. Narducci.
Thank you, Dr. Gilbert. Just wanted to make sure my mute was off there. I think one of the strong areas here is as it being a reciprocal partnership, as Dr. Toenjes said. We want more. Let's put it this way: we want to value the partnership more in schools than just the giveaways. And the giveaways, we need those, please. But we want to move past that with our school leaders, sitting down with our community businesses. We're doing that with a program called School Connect with our elementary schools right now, all 31. They've been in the process since last year of really defining what the needs are from community business, and then reaching out and having cafe-style meetings with the businesses, and actually the principal stating what their needs are academically throughout the campus, in their community, what's needed. And then the businesses can figure out, well, gee, we can take that part, or we can take that part. And then the reciprocation comes in when the school district is able to help that business by understanding more of what their needs are. And so we're working on that. And with that reciprocation, we start to see the growth of really partners and alliances that change academic success, right? A $10 gift card to a local business is not going to change a student's pathway to success. but involvement of businesses in education and principals knowing how to involve them in what they do on a daily basis will help with outcomes. Another way is to partner on pathways for success for our students. An example of this is we work with Micah Miranda with the city and identifying critical needs in the engineering workforce, and specifically the semiconductor area that's rapidly expanding here in the Chandler area. And we work together with the leaders of our school district, and Dr. Gilbert, you were in that meeting too, as well as industry, to look at what our engineering and career and technology certification programs in engineering could do to be able to provide this awesome pathway for our students. Now our CTE directors are working directly with the alliances and the corporations to be able to offer our students, if they graduate with our engineering CTE certification, an opportunity to go work right out of high school for $50,000 a year and be able to be a floor supervisor, understanding what it takes to do that entry-level position. And these corporations will actually pay for their engineering degrees. So it's that whole pathway of maybe of school to work to school again. And so that's a great way to partner as well. And then just help us expand the opportunity for student internships and outside of the classroom authentic learning experiences. That's one of the areas we really want to grow with, such as a partnership we've developed with between Chandler Education Foundation with the Boys and Girls Club called the AZ Youth Force, which provides our students hands-on experiences with potential career opportunities, local business engaging students and learning about soft and hard skills that career readiness skills that our students need, and enhance workforce development through career and technical education and trade school opportunities. And so that any business can assist with, and we're starting to see that program grow. It came out from one of our CEF board members who also works with ASU very closely. And then just the last part, and this is a big part for all of us, and I hope I'm speaking on behalf of Kyrene maybe and Tempe, is to understand and assist communicate the facts about our local school overrides and bond elections. They're successful communities and cities and your businesses, and we're all linked together. We're symbiotic. There's no way to unlink us. People move where there's success. People move where there's a tradition of success. CSD was going out for an override this November. It's $42 million of a 15% continuance. And so with that information, we don't expect there to be tax increases, but we want our local businesses to be able to know that and to be able to express that. Same thing, cities also going out, and we need to know that as well, because we are linked, and together we can move through that successfully. Right now, our current tax rate is about 1.18, and we do not see that would be changed or go up. But Arizona funding formula still, even though there's a lot of talk about monies coming into school, they're temporary funds, right? They're not sustainable funds. These help us create sustainable opportunities and help us keep programs going in districts, because even though people are reading and hearing, wow, teachers got this and schools have this temporary gap filling funding, those go away. And it's still hard to believe. It's still hard to believe that Arizona is still considered to be funded among the lowest levels in the nation. I just can't get over that. We've been at this so hard and so long, and still we remain so low. And our override supports academic programming at the current level. We're not talking about adding anything by the override being successful. We're just talking about maintaining competitive salaries. We're already having a hard time. So how do we do that if we're not able to and we have to go backwards? Continue to develop and provide programming in STEM, athletics, fine arts, performing arts, and languages. And last, provide our secure campuses and maintain manageable class sizes. All those are really dependent on outside funding. They aren't built on the funding that we already get. And as you know, it's already lower than what it is. So that the overrides and bonds help communities and cities and offer and create an environment where people want to be. And Chandler's done a great job of that. The city has, as well as the district has, and I would say across the East Valley. I'm going to bring all of us in. The East Valley is a great place to be, and I moved here from Tucson because of that. To be honest with you, because it's just futuristic and it's a great place for students to grow and learn and stay.
Thank you, Dr. Mendivil.
Well, I would echo. I know Frank is talking a lot about at least my attention with the high schools, and we're competitors. We know that, but it's fun, but it's true. The element of involvement with our business partners is critical. I'm going to come from a slightly different angle. We have strong CTE programming, but just as we want our teachers to create relationships or have a caring adult with each of the kids, it really is no different for that business owner or someone from a corporation to come in with these classes. And I know for them that it's probably very different and can be very, you're putting yourself out there with kids when you have a class of 25, 30 kids, but that critical piece that they are approachable, this executive or this engineer or this accountant or this whatever, that in itself, if there can be some continuity of presence of actual business owners and practitioners in those classrooms, that is going to ignite, I think, greater interest and enthusiasm on our students' parts to go into a particular area. I'll give you one example. Auto mechanics. We all, with the days of the auto mechanics and these CTE programs. Well, I'll tell you, I was visiting a classroom last year when there were no kids around. I thought, oh my God, this is what we're teaching kids. You can't do that. How are you going to take care of a car today, 21st century, with all the, I couldn't even look under my hood and figure out what it does anymore, but of my car. But it's that kind of thing to get the actual practitioners that are in our community. So these externships, internships for our CTE program to just bolster and strengthen them. Right now we have solid programming and we have increased our certificate completion of these courses over the years, and we'll continue to do that. But again, it's just making those connections with schools and with classrooms, because those kids talk to other kids, those kids talk to their moms and dads, all of that. So for me, and in our district, the high school only system, that level of personalization in our classroom across the board is pivotal. I'm of the opinion, and it's part of our goal and mission, we want to make sure that we prepare our students for college, career, and life. And the best thing that I can do for our families and for our students is to prepare and have a strong readiness for our students when they leave us, that they have choices. Because college right now, immediately from high school, isn't for everyone. They may decide to go in 2 or 3 years and still have that as a goal. But some of them might come right out of high school. And to your point, Frank, because I see it all the time, kids are making $70,000, $80,000, and the employer is helping train them. What I want to do is get in front of what is it you want from our kids? What are the skills? And I know that collaborative nature, being able to connect, being able to work on projects, being able to do all of that, that our 21st century learning skills is part of our focus and goal for our programming. But our business community, I couldn't be more proud and thankful. I will echo the sentiments around our capital bond and overrides that will come up in a year. We rely on the support because I'd like to think we have some of the best looking schools, even though they're older. Our newest, Desert Vista, just celebrated 25 years. I don't even know. I'm getting old too. But they look beautiful. And I want to continue that our families see these schools, and while it's a building, but it's the first representation of what you see of Tempe Union. And I'm very proud of how our schools look, and I want to continue that effort. So help us out with that, support us. We are together and stronger when we work to the same cause and making sure our kids have the best educational environment.
Thank you. I'd like to take the rest of the time that we have to take some questions from our audience. And so I'd like to just pose the question, and if any of you want to chime in and answer that question, please feel free. First question I have is, do our districts have programs to help students that were learning from home transition back to in-person learning, especially in regards to mental health?
Sure. I could start if I don't know if the public may be aware as much that back about 2020-21, there was a Senate bill out there that amended Arizona revised statute on health and mental health and really focused on mental health. And it's in law that all school districts have a mental health curriculum that not only focuses on the social and the emotional aspects of students while they're at school, but also their mental health. And so we've augmented that going into last year. So every one of our schools has the curriculum, K through 12, to be able to work with students. And it has to be taught in a health class or in another area of the school day. So for example, in elementary, they may be implementing that curriculum once a week in the classroom. But the vulnerability part here is students were at home and they were familial. And so we have to make our classrooms feel a little more familial. They got to feel belonging, and they have to have a sense of freedom, a little bit of sense of freedom, because that's what they had. And when students have that restriction, they don't move forward. They freeze up and they don't know. So we have to, and I think Kevin mentioned this earlier in the presentation, is that comfort zone, being in a place where you feel that people care about you and that you have some choices and that you have the freedom of choice. And to be honest with you, mental health has a lot to do with enjoyment and whether you feel like you're fleeing something or whether you're attracted to it because it's pleasurable. And we have to make our experiences with schooling more pleasurable for students. They need to be a little more fun and have a little more freedom. And they need to also have a little bit more direction, so they're not feeling like they're always questioning whether they did something wrong or whether they said something wrong, or is somebody in the classroom not accepting them. So that acceptability that also Laura brought up earlier is very important. And so we feel that every classroom environment has that opportunity. It starts when we greet kids. It starts how we treat kids, and then it ends up how they're engaged in our classrooms. We're fortunate to have counselors at every school and social workers who do groups and work with students, and are also working in classrooms to make sure. And if any parent in Chandler needs any connectivity and they feel their child is having some issues, whether they be mental, social, or emotional at school, please contact our school principals or our school leaders. They will work with you. And if a student needs to be in a group, we'll work with them as well and make touch points with that student, or even connect them if they're feeling like they're not connected to other students. That's my biggest fear, is that a student comes back to school and has no connection with other students, and we can work with that. So we just don't, good information in is good information out. So help us understand what your child needs.
Thank you. Any others?
Dr. Gilbert, so I was thinking a lot about that. We're getting ready to actually take our, what I'll call our ESSER plan on the road here to get some feedback, but in it, we are going to identify some key programs that address academics, but really also social emotional needs as well. And one of the key ways we're doing that, I would say, if you want to call it a program, is through our multi-tiered systems of supports that we're putting in place. We have strengthened that system within our organization. We are putting our teachers through an extensive amount of training in multi-tiered systems of support, and there's different tiers to this, and it is also focused on social emotional. And as Superintendent Narducci said, we do have counselors at our sites. We have the social emotional curriculum. We actually had that in place before the statute, so we were already headed down that direction. We were very fortunate that we were the recipient when ADE released some of their ESSER dollars to put more counselors in classrooms, that we received some of that. So between all that, we will be providing additional support. In addition, I mentioned our summer programming. We are able to continue that type of programming for the next few years because the ESSER money is for the next few years. And the other thing that's going to be in part of our plan is each of our sites has their own unique needs. So as much as some of this is done at an organizational or a district level, there are some unique needs. And so we will be freeing up some of those ESSER dollars to let our sites determine what program they actually need at their school, specifically based on their needs, whether they need more academic or more social emotional support. And so again, we will be using our ESSER dollars to build programs between now and when the money runs out. And the one last thing I want to say, and both superintendents mentioned this, all of that is based on the data. Not making assumptions that everybody needs the same thing or everybody needs something, but truly looking at not only we do a panorama survey, which is some social emotional data we actually get to try to identify where there might be needs. And that is why that is so critical. And then our academic data. And so using that data to build these programs and not just building programs on the front end to say one size fits all.
I'll add to a little bit of that because I know you're being mindful of the time. But Laura talks about the multi-tiered system of support. The last 3 years, that was a priority of mine, is to really define and have clearly established roles and responsibilities for those teams that comprise of dropout prevention coordinators, academic coaches, social workers through Care 7. We're fortunate we have a strong partnership with the City of Tempe, Care 7 program. So we have social workers at all our schools full time now. They were part-time and over the years, but those teams, the work that they do, people forget that we have human beings that we're responsible for. And so you have, when a child is in need, whether that's a learning need or an emotional or health need, we don't have teams of doctors. Like I have a cousin who's a doctor, and he marvels at the work that we do with very little support. They have one patient and they have multiple supports that are surrounding what that patient gets. These MTSS teams that Laura and I are talking about are those teams, except they have far more patients, but at least they're teams that can really hone in on what our kids are needing for the time for their success throughout their day, whether that's learning, because we focus a lot on the learning, but kids can't learn if they're not emotionally or in a healthy state of mind. Put that aside. The other piece to that is that the relationships that the teachers have, with their students, because they're the other. I go back to teachers because their role is so critical. What are the look fors that they have, especially in the high school system? What are the triggers that they need to be trained to be aware of on day one and throughout the year, to be mindful of with their students? Because I have unfortunately witnessed where we have kids that go into the second, third, fourth hour and no one has paid attention to that kid's emotional well-being or the triggers that may have been displayed earlier in the day or the day prior for that matter. So it's those kinds of things that we just take for granted. Secondary teachers are wonderful, but they're content level experts. I said this to our teachers just a couple of weeks ago that, our kids in high school, they're kids just in bigger bodies. they're still kids. So put how this young student, female student or boy, they look like men, they look like women, out in public, they're 20, they're not, they're kids. And so it's that piece that it's reshaping and having our teachers, especially, I'm talking high school just for my group, that they've got to understand what are the triggers, even if for a young adolescent in high school. So it's all of that. And I think what she was getting at is that what are we doing? We have really honed in and working with Care 7 with the social workers. And our focus again is just that. You are spending not just a couple, 3 days for engagement connection activities with your students this week. You're going to be doing this all year long. And that's going to be one of the things that I'm looking for when I'm in classrooms. What are you doing to engage and connect with your students? Because I'm asking kids, and what did your teacher do today, and that kind of a thing. So there's a lot of good work going on. So on all three of our districts.
Well, that was excellent. On behalf of the Chandler Chamber of Commerce Education Workforce Development Committee, I would like to say thank you to Superintendent Toenjes, Narducci, and Mendivil for being here today. We really appreciate what you're doing. Listening to you today, I'm so hopeful to what is going to happen in your districts in the East Valley. And we appreciate that you are leading your communities, because we think that you're doing a great job, and we really appreciate that. And we're looking forward to what's next in your district. With that said, I would like to thank our sponsor again for making this event possible and supporting our programs. That would be Intel, Arizona State University, Air Products and Chemicals, and Wells Fargo. Also, there's an evaluation survey that will be sent to you after the program. Please fill it out and let us know what you want to see in our upcoming roundtables. And thank you for all being here today, and please enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much, panel, for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great week.
You as well.
Thank you.